Hey everyone, I'm here with Warren and crew, and we're doing a drum setup. And we're not cutting a record, and this isn't a session, but it was something that I thought was cool that we did a drum setup that you can maybe get two or three drum set styles out of it. One is kind of a Led Zeppelin rocker drum set. The other one is kind of a Ringo Star. We put towels over. The other one is a little bit more of like, one ribbon mic and a kick drum. Philip Bailey is our drummer that's helping us out. He's in a band called Spirit of the Room. He's come in to give us some time. And like I said, this is just all an experiment to have fun. Take it with a grain of salt, some of these ideas. Hopefully you'll come up with your own ideas. We're at Suplex Audio. We've got all the mics up. Let's just see what happens. It's Manny here. I'm with Philip Bailey of a wonderful band called Spirit in the Room. This is actually our studio, even though I always say this is my studio. We actually share this space. So Philip's in here. These are his drums we used on the record. Everything here was kind of a setup that we had on a song called Birds of Paradise off the record. And that's what came about this whole thing about, even though I'm doing 3 drum setups, we're going to focus in right now on the kind of Ringo Star Beatles setup. If you notice, he's got these cloths taped to him. I think you got them at Kmart for like $6 or not a lot. You've seen a lot of drummers put the cloths over the drums to get that like kind of, Beatley Ringo Star sound. But I think what they all miss about it is, even though these mics aren't connected, these are actually Philips. But if you're traditional recording, some guy may put a mic on it and be recording the top. Clay, the guy from Boulevard Recordings, did a whole retro Beatle thing. And he explained as well that they mic from the bottoms, not the top. So even though you see the cloth, don't pay attention to this mic. All their mics are on the bottom. So underneath the toms, I have a Audio-Technica 230. Underneath the floor tom is an Audio-Technica 230. And underneath the snare is a 414, and I have a brass capsule in it. Even though that sounds fancy, it's just, I love that mic for the bottom of the snare. So I'm basically miking underneath the drums, and the overheads will capture the top of the drums. Whenever you do that, it's a general rule that these will be out of phase. So either on your preamp or your DAW on an EQ, you have to flip these out of phase to make it work. So you're basically making your toms into the biggest toms ever, because you have this is the bottom and this is the top. And that's that whole Ringo Star thudding sound, but you hear low end in it. And I think that's what makes this really cool. Later on, the Beatles started putting mics on the top, but I'm just really loving this sound because we not only did we record it, it kind of blew my mind that it actually sounded so cool. So I'm going to share that with you. Once again, mics are only on the bottom. They're not mic'd on the top of the floor tom and the snare. We have a kick mic going on, and we got an overhead. And I did put this hi-hat, I put a hi-hat mic because he kind of plays it as he's drumming, and I wanted to make sure I can capture that. So if you do get the files and you do load it up, you're going to see the whole drum set lit up, but you can be selective. And if you only have 4 mics, you can do the bottom of the snare, bottom of the tom, bottom of the other tom and a kick drum, or, any version of 4 to 3 mics, that'll work. You don't need all these mics to do it. The kick drum is a Bach. Those aren't expensive, but they're about like $700, but it's my favorite kick drum. But it can be replaced with a D112, a 57, anything you want really to put on the kick drum. This mic, I just have it as kind of a noise mic. It's just in there. And like I said, it's just one of the tools you'll have. You can maybe blend it in, put some distortion on it, whatever you want. In the room, I have some Altec 21Ds. They're 1950s mics. They're tube mics. They are crazy cool. And if you can't find them, don't be bummed. You can go buy Russian Octavas, and they have a pack of them that have different capsules in it. You can get the one with Omni, and they're really affordable, $300-400. Put the Omnis on the floor. They have extended low end. They sound really great. I'm only using those for the low end. So if you can get some Octavas, those will be fine. The way this really works is with a great drummer, a cool drum set. Even though this is a newer kit, you can get an older kit. We're focusing on the idea and the technique, not recreating Ringo Starr's thing. So, we're not bringing in a retro kit. We're not going to be snobby about you have to use these type of cymbals. This is a working man's drum set. This is his drum set he makes a living on. And we're going to mic it this way to get a cool sound that's going to be original for him. So let's go in there, and he's going to play some beats, and we're going to check that out. I have the Pro Tools session ready to go. Philip's going to play the drums that started this whole idea about this. It's a song called Birds of Paradise, and we're just going to take a crack at it. When you get these files, if you do get them and you want to listen to what we did, all the mics are open up for you to hear, but I'm focusing only on the bottoms of the mics of the toms, the bottom of the snare, and the kick drum, and I just want a thick-sounding drum set. It's going to be dark. It's going to be darker than me, so prepare yourself. So, the reason I mic the hi-hat, because he has that nice little top end on that. And with that microphone, I can bring that in. That's the vibe of what I'm looking for. Like I said, we're not recreating something or trying to be like a Beatles song. We just wanted to take that style and make a cool song from it. And actually, it sounds close to me. There's a Peter Gabriel song called Intruder, and it sounds like that kind of thing. So. Now, I've added some delays on the room mics. I'm just messing around with that, but I'm not committed to that. It's just for when I'm listening back. So you can take those off if you want, not use them. I'm just having fun with it. And hopefully you got something from this style. One thing I will say on the setup here, it's a simple setup. It's microphones, preamps. After we did this setup, I was having an issue. That's why when you get analog gear, there's an issue. I have a noise issue in the overhead. So I put an expander gate on it. So if you have the raw files, you'll hear that open up. But I just put it for the moment, think fast, do something to keep that noise out. It worked, but you can mess around with it. But anyways, that's something I'll have to get checked out. I did put an expander, also a gate on the rack tom. When we did the record, I made them really loud and I EQ'd them and did some things to them that when I put the gate on it was really nice to have them just come in and come out. I didn't edit the file in Pro Tools, I just did it through a gate. There's a trick that Warren did about doing a gate with two compressors, and that's kind of what I did on them as well. So if you can look that up, snare trick, you can see how I gated the toms. But for right now, we're just using the expander. The only other plugin I have is on the drums are all bused to an API 2500. Settings are just very simple. I'm just adding a little bit of gain stage to it. The master bus has a Fairchild, and it's just kind of working a little bit, not too much, making it sound fluffy and cool. I have a limiter just to kind of tuck everything. It's barely on. And then I have an EQ that I've just cut everything below 40 that's not necessary. So all the tracks, I'm not gonna change any of that. That'll probably be on most of it. So now we're gonna go back in the room and we're gonna discuss kind of a Led Zeppelin sound, a little bit of a heavier sound. We're gonna take the cloths off. All right, so now we're gonna have some fun and, as you say, take off the gloves now, and now we've removed the cloths over the drums. I've taken the mic clips of the bottoms mics and flip them onto the top. When I go in there, I'll be reversing the phase back to normal, not reversed. So right now we just have this tom and the floor tom mic'd. Snare is mic'd top and bottom. Top is a 57, bottom is a 414. Audio Technica is on the toms. C12 as a single overhead, C12 coming across his drums. We have a ribbon mic, and like I said, I'm just all these mics, you don't have to use them, but if you're doing kind of a rock and roll Bonham sound, you can even do it with 3 mics. So that's what we have. So you have a kick drum mic, you have the center overhead, and you got that floor tom mic, and then you got a snare. So you can do it with 4 mics or 3. The style is cool in the technique of the miking, but once again, it doesn't have to be an old kit. It doesn't have to be a new kit. It could be anything you want. It's just more of the technique of doing that 3 mic setup. kick drum, center overhead, and there's a mic near its floor tom coming across the whole drum set. A good way to start if you don't know how high to put your drums, depending on your room and depending on your drums and how loud the guy hits, I usually like to go about 2.5 sticks to 3 sticks. So hold a stick up from the center of the snare and you put 1 and then you go 2 and then you go 3. And usually 3 lengths or 2.5 is fine with me. And then you do the same thing to the floor tom. You go 1, 2, 3, and it should be 3 stick lengths to the floor tom. That's going to ensure that you're in phase. Some people use measuring tapes. I just use drumsticks. So anyways, I still have the hi-hat mic. We could use it. We could not use it. But technically, we're just talking about a rock and roll drum set, and then we're going to rock out a little bit. So now we're going to go in there, and Philip's going to maybe break into a sweat. I don't know. All right, thanks. Now we got the kind of the rock setup. All the mics are fired up. Like I said, all the mics are going to be up all the times for all the sessions. But you can choose. If you really only had 4 mics, you can do the kick, snare, center overhead, and then the mic that comes across the side. And that's a pretty badass, heavy drum set. I'm just messing with the drums right now, and you can put them any level. It may be a little hot, but like I said, this isn't a record we're cutting. We're just giving the example of setting up the drums and trying to get a big sound. And it was like 20 minutes to set this up. Of course, it can get a little bit better, but it gives you an idea at a starting point. And one thing I've done to the room mics, I have delayed them a little bit, only because my room doesn't have any decay. So I'm just kind of putting the 2 mics, and like I said, I'm not committing to it, but I can slide them around later on when I'm mixing to get the right tempo with the right room. But right now, sounds cool, sounds thumping. All right, so now we're at the last one. And like I said, all these drum sets, the mics have all been on at different levels. This one in particular, I'm gonna focus a little bit on the center ribbon overhead and maybe the kick drum and lean on the floor tom. And this would be like kind of like a Tom Waits or a soft rock and roll song. We're not banging it. I don't have the C12s pumping, but minimalism is the best. So when you mix it, I may even just lean on the ribbon mic on the overhead and maybe the kick drum and the bottom of the snare. Those 3 really sound good together. The ribbon mic is a modified ribbon. The kick drum is the Bach. The bottom of the snare is a 414, and I may use a little bit of the C12 over there. But if we were stripped away on a desert island and we got 2, maybe just the ribbon mic and the kick drum, and that would supply a really cool groove for a cool song that you could rely more on the song, not drums that are just going to knock you over the head. All right, so now that we're here in the session, we're going to hit record. And like I said, I'm just kind of leaning in for the sound of more of a drum, not to really take over the track, but you have some room to wiggle with the other mics, but I'm kind of leaning on the ribbon mic, up really loud, kick drum. So anyways, that's the ribbon mic. I'm just playing it back to see what we did. It's an open up drum set. The mic's not in the kick drum, so that's why it's not like snappy. but that's 2 mics. Those are kind of stereo imagery we're adding in now. Add the rooms. You know, to the most part, if we were working with that, I'd totally be happy with that. So anyways, this last one was just, if you only had 2 mics, you could use a ribbon mic and a kick drum and get a cool drum set. And once again, this is all just in theory of how to be creative with the drums, and hope you enjoyed that. That was just kind of a really cool setup, and Philip coming down and playing the drums is incredible. He's a great drummer. You should check out his band, Spirit in the Room. And beyond that, thanks Warren and crew for having me.